Committee of the Whole is called to order. Unfortunately, we don't have a quorum. We only have, I'm thankful for my colleagues to show up, Senator Telo Tadigui, Senator Jesse Guåhan, and Senator Roy Canata. Once we have a quorum, we will continue on with the Committee of the Whole. At this time, we'll continue on recess. The Committee of the Whole is called back to order. We do have a quorum. We will now move to the amendment introduced by Speaker Therese Terlai. Ma'am, notwithstanding any provision of $314,061. Ma'am? Oh, well, we have it. I have it in my packet. It's for DICIT, 314,061. And that would zero out the funding for
All right,
OHAP.
yeah, thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Chair. So this was left out of the packet, so it should be loose on everyone's desk. But this was part of those amendments to reallocate that money from OHAP to direct services. So this amendment would be to add a new section to Chapter 11, where $314,061 is appropriated from the general fund to DISIT, the Department of Integrated Services for Individuals with Disabilities. Again, this, oh, wait a minute, Mr. Chair. That should be there. So you're off by 16. Okay, thank you. Wait.
Are we good?
Wait, just a second.
That'll complete all the funding there.
Huh?
Oh, it should have been 661. You can make that amendment right here while we're still discussing it, Madam Speaker, if you want. It's still going to DISIT. And it also identifies at the bottom to make legal connection. No, there's nothing, Madam Speaker. It's just to make the amendment. You also have the Office of Finance, Budget, and Legal to make technical correction. I think that was supposed to be 3140661.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I could amend that amount to say 314,661. That was pointed out by OFB. I was off. It should be 314,661.
Yes, ma'am.
I would make that amendment.
All right. Is there any objection to that amendment? On the amendment? There being none, that amendment passes. Madam Speaker, do you still need to speak to it?
Yeah, and then, I would, this amendment, it was originally put in for DISIT, but since we put this in, we have been able to allocate to DISIT this amount from FY2025 potential excess revenues. So I would like to amend this to, instead of DISIT, make this money go to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. This is a floor amendment that was also sent in. It is because, as you know, the Guam Cancer Trust Fund was supposed to receive a percentage, and in the motion that wiped out all the other amendments that were pending, it wiped out all the amendments to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. So this would put in $300,000 to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, which is actually, according to the formula, short by $2 million this year. So it's a really small amount, but hopefully get some services. We're being told by people that even cancer medication, even for the government of Guam, health insurance is not all covered, and these things are very, very, very expensive, in the tens of thousands of dollars. So hopefully we can get them a little bit more money here and elsewhere. But for this one, I would amend that again to say, instead of DISIT, Guam Cancer Trust Fund.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Are there any objections to that amendment as amended? There being none, so pass. Do you need to close on this one? I'm going to ask if are there any objection at all on this amendment as amended? Oh, yeah, okay, you want to speak to it? She chose not to close. I was going to. All right, there's no objection to this. This amendment passes as amended. We will now go to the next amendment is proffered by Senator Guåhan. You have an amendment, sir?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And everybody should have that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to my colleagues. Mr. Chairman, this is page 117, again, is to add a new section to the end of Chapter 11 miscellaneous provisions of the bill to read in regards to the section, and read it pretty much there. It's their certificate of claim. And this, Mr. Chairman, just again memorializes what we did last year, and this goes back to 2006, Mr. Chairman, of a settlement that's not settled yet. And we added, of course, last August to Section 11, miscellaneous provisions, and it is currently on this fiscal budget, Public Law 37-42. As stated clearly in the 2024 budget, it is the intent of the Instituto en Guåhan to once again settle all challenges concerning the validity and the negotiability of certificates of claim, and to ensure certificate holders are fully compensated without further need for litigation. The Instituto en Guåhan finds that the government of Guam owes over 400 COLA class retirees and the COLA class council and the full amount of their certificates of claim plus interest. This amendment reiterates, Mr. Chairman, the certificates continue to be payable on demand, that the Department of Administration shall pay from any available funding source immediately as provided by Title 5, Guam Code Annotated subsection 6404D, and that the government waives immunity from suit or action and shall pay reasonable attorney's fees for suit brought to compel the government to pay. Again, this just memorializes what we put in last year's budget. It hasn't been settled at this point in totality. There are still folks out there that continue to call our office, and we refer to a class council for action. And the reason why we want to memorialize this, Mr. Chairman, is we don't want to give DOA an excuse because it's not in this year's budget, that therefore it says, well, it was last year's budget, and therefore, we're not responsible for the payment, because over the years, they have kind of said things of that nature in regards to the COLA certificate holders. So we want to make sure that, again, this is no appropriate, this is money that's already, they've gone out to borrow money for this specific payout that happened back in, and I know because I was the author of the COLA certificates back in 2006. And so we want to make some of these, actually quite a few of them, Mr. Chairman, have passed, and these certificates are now held by their heirs. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this particular amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Guåhan. Does anyone like to speak to this? Senator Dueñas?
Mr. Chair, and I want to rise in support of the good senator's amendment, Senator Guåhan. Once again, I wanted to reiterate on the record what the intent, and I want to say how much that even the current director and current members of the fiscal team knew that as part of the transition report from the Cabo administration to the current administration, it was clearly ordered that this be paid. And the money was identified. I guess time and the clock ran out. But the clear situation that exists is that this is a righteous debt. It is something that if we don't continue to appropriate these funds, could subject the government of Guam to an additional lawsuit, which would be unfortunate, because I'm sure we would lose that lawsuit, and it would just cost us more money. So I want to thank the senator for moving this, and that this should be recognized in every budget, as far as I'm concerned, until every class member is paid out and paid in full. I was made to understand in some of the conversations back and forth with the Department of Administration currently, Mr. Chair, is that if people come in with claims, they pay them. Because they know that this is a righteous debt to the government of Guam, or that the government of Guam has to the recipients of this payout. And then I remember also an exchange from my colleague and others on the floor here with Department of Administration, during the opening of the budget talks in Chapter 1, that what would you do if these claims come due and they become payable? And the simple answer was, we will use the general fund to make the payment. And if the reconciliation comes to the point to where you know, we have funding issues, maybe we'll come back to you, but the fact of the matter is, the general fund should always be able to carry this, because we did go to the market, we did establish a bond for this, and this money should always be available for those who righteously have those claims. And so, Mr. Chair, I'm glad once again we're going to identify this, and clearly the funding source is there, because the funding source is the general fund, as it always has been. Jesus Masi, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Barnett, did you want to speak on this?
Just good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I had a question for the author, just to clarify. Did we do a very similar amendment in the last budget session?
Senator Lujan,
Yes, we did. We certainly did. And again, other than the legislative intent, that was the only thing. This just memorializes exactly what we put in, which now became, of course, 37-42. And the exact same section. Because there wasn't an appropriation for this, but I wanted to make sure that it stayed in the same section, section 11. Rather than miscellaneous appropriations or miscellaneous provisions, I kept it in the same section, so there's no wiggle room out of DOA to say one way or another that it's you know, it's a different section and something different. So this is exactly what we put in last year's appropriation bill, but also became law on Public Law 37-42.
Sidus Masi, yeah, because I supported it last year and I'll support it again this year. But I wasn't really clear when Mr. Byrne was here if they actually paid out any of these certificates.
They have, and if anyone goes down to claim it, they're going to pay it. They said they're ready to pay. They just need folks to come in and claim it.
Okay, so I support the amendment. In fact, I remember last budget session when we had discussed and voted in favor of this. It was after we had entertained all of the amendments with the appropriations, which we're not doing in this budget session. But yeah, definitely rise in support of it. And I just want to note also that, you know, I think it was the intent of the author to put this in every budget so that there's no excuse. Unfortunately, I don't know why we have to force them, but if that's what we have to do, then I support it. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. I just have a point of inquiry for the proffer, if you would yield, is how long have these retirees have been waiting for this debt to be paid, and did it start with the Lola Cola case, or did the debt go on the books afterwards?
Senator Lujan.
The judgment came out, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The judgment came out November 21st, 2006.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure.
You're welcome.
All right, does anyone need to speak on this? If not, do you need to close? Senator Roy Canata?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did speak with the author of this amendment earlier, that it is a memorialization proposed amendment. I just wanted to find out if OLB can comment on this regarding the bond. Is there still a bond on this certificate, or is it already paid out?
Steve?
Yes, Senator. I'm not quite sure at this moment what the balance is of whatever funds are available, but according to testimony provided by a Director of Administration, Mr. Burns, he said that any claims made for these COLA certificates will be honored by Department of Administration and paid.
Okay, thank you. Do we know how many are still pending payment? Anybody have any information regarding that?
I can yield to that question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, please do.
Mr. Chairman, as of last year, there was about 400. That number may have dwindled down a little bit, but what we're seeing at this point, Mr. Chairman, is some of them may have been stuck in probate because quite a few of them have passed on, and so this is part of the probate.
Okay.
Does that suffice, Senator Canata?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's where the hiccup is I was just trying to find out if there's any way to rectify it, but if it's stuck in probate, then, you know, it's gonna be stuck in purgatory until it's resolved.
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Senator Granta. Anyone else need to speak on this? If not, can you go ahead and close, Senator Lujan?
I think I opened and closed already, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any objection to this amendment? There being none, amendment passes. We will now proceed to the next amendment. The next amendment is, Madam Speaker, you have another amendment? It's on the cancer, Guam Cancer Trust Fund,
This is
but
Mossy. This was supposed to be funded, it says from general fund to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund and 950,000, but this is from de-appropriation made after this amendment. I guess it was put in the wrong order, so that's, let me just see if that's still in here. So we're going to amend that section, that amendment, sorry, so that we can use that fund. So we will, I'm going to withdraw this, Mr. Chair.
so be it.
This is yeah, like these were, we were supposed to, well, there were some proposals to fund the Guam Cancer Trust Fund out of FY24 excess. Because those amendments are not being entertained, we are unable to entertain that.
Yep.
We're going to try to find this in just a subsequent amendment that I've got further back.
All right, thank you. So this amendment, because it's not heard, we're just going to go ahead and skip it. Next, we're going to proceed to Senator Parrish. You have an amendment appropriating the Department of Health for paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowship. 100,000. You can identify the source of funding. You have quite a few. Or you got behavioral. 2 of them. Total of 3. Ma'am? Correction, you have 4. 4 amendments. We need a source of funding to identify this amendment. The one is for the postdoctoral fellowship, 100,000 from the Healthy Human Service Fund. Ma'am, to the Department of Health and to Public Health for paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowship.
Okay, yeah, so with this amendment, basically it's to appropriate money from the Health and Human Services Fund. I think I need to make a correction there. Yeah, that should have been included in there. Appropriated from, oh, it's already in there. So it states, notwithstanding the provision of law, $100,000 from the Health and Human Services Fund is hereby appropriated to the Department of Health and Social Services to fund paid graduate, I would say doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship positions relative to accruing postgraduate hours for licensure as a licensed clinical social worker, psychologist, and/or psychiatrist. And this appropriation shall not lapse and shall continue to be available until fully expended. And so it's very clear that there is a dearth of positions, or there's a lot of vacancies in regards to psychologists, psychiatrists within our public health agencies. This is a way to, it's a pipeline. It's a way to open up the pipeline to these agencies so they can fill these positions. And I know there are individuals that are going through these programs. Unfortunately, there's the brain drain, right? So that's the problem that Guam is experiencing. Oftentimes, they leave island to go to higher education, but they don't come back. And so this is a means through which they can come back and provide services to the community, especially with a lot of our workforce is aging and about to retire. I think we really need to provide these internships. And so it already exists. It exists with the judiciary currently. I believe it's in their budget. But this is much lower than what was, I think, included in their budget for interns. And so this can go to fund, possibly 2 interns, and also, increase the chances of having them stay. And, I know it's not going to be enough to reverse the brain drain, but it provides a means to address it. So right now, the Human Health and Services Fund it goes towards these health agencies. So it does apply to providing services to those in need. And so, you know, when we talk about mental health issues, you know, there are a lot of issues facing our community. You know, we have a meth epidemic, and that, you know, definitely we need to support that, those efforts to ensure that people who are seeking services get the services they need. You know, oftentimes we focus on the physical trauma, but we often neglect to see the mental trauma that's hidden. And, you know, I think this is something that we can do to support this much needed cause. And I ask for my colleagues' support.
All right, thank you, Senator Perez. And just to advise my colleagues, the fund currently right now, as of September 30th, 2022, is $420,617. So there is adequate funding here, and there is fund available to support this amendment. Anyone needs to speak on this? Okay, see everybody's hand going up. Senator Fisher, begin with you, and then followed by Senator Tideway.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. It's more in the line of getting to know this amendment. It says that the money is to fund paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowship positions. Are those, do we mean to say that these are graduate and postdoctoral fellowship positions within the Department of Public Health and Social Services?
Senator Perez, do you yield to that question?
Sir, can you clarify what the question?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, sir, I can. This is happening to fund paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowship positions. Do you mean graduate and postdoctoral positions which already exist within the Department of Public Health?
Okay, so if I can answer it this way. So a lot of times these programs, they require on-the-field experience. And so what it takes is basically a licensed individual to oversee and supervise their hours. So sometimes they need like 3,000 hours. And so it's, you know, I think the internships is important to kind of draw these individuals to stay on Guam or come to Guam. So there, you know, we know Guam has a high cost of living, and I think this is a good way to kind of, you know, bridge their needs, because obviously they need to sustain themselves. So it's an opportunity for these agencies, you know, to have an internship, and it's not. This exists in other agencies, from what I could tell. Like for instance, attorneys. We have had paid internships from the attorneys at General's office to help. You know, to provide services or provide opportunities for current students to, you know, meet their credential field work. So this type of thing already exists in the government, and I'm just trying to focus attention on the healthcare, the mental health care.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? In a way?
Yes, sir, in a way. I'm just trying to understand the intent. And I get the intent, of course, and we do that throughout the agencies. But my question is, this money will be spent for Department of Public Health purposes only, and it will be paid to the Department of Public Health for them to fund positions within the Department of Public Health. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's so.
Okay.
Because we follow, Senator Perez, you can probably answer that. Because the way I answer is, the amendment says to fund paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowship positions relative to accruing postgraduate hours for licensure as a licensed clinical social worker. They could be and they might not be. The same thing with a psychologist and or as a psychiatrist. Okay, so it could go either direction. And maybe Senator Perez can answer that. I don't know if I said it correctly for you, Senator Perez.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you want some more clarity on it, I can, you know, ask, you know, from what I saw in the budget, there isn't anything assigned to it. And so I think I think this is within the jurisdiction of these agencies to have interns, especially if they're looking for supervised field work to meet their graduation requirements. So it also goes to masters, and I wanted to also include doctoral students too, because I noticed that was also missing. So we want to just ensure that's covered. But going to your question, what I saw in the budget, there wasn't any paid internship in there. You know, I can find out why, but I think this is something that is currently being practiced. It's just, you know, making it, streamlining this process, I feel would, you know, provide this opportunity. Just, you know, I think funding is one of the big issues when it comes to attracting these positions. And if we can get them in the door early on, I think this would go a long way. But like I said, it's already practiced in other agencies. The Attorney General's office has done that as in the past, to pay for students to intern at agencies here on Guam. So I think this is within the purview of these, the executive branch.
All right, I hope that answers in
yes,
a way.
Yes, sir, thank you, in a way. I guess a better way for me to express my concern is, could the money be used in the event, for example, the Department of Education had a licensed clinical social worker on board? Could this money be used for them as well? You know, it's a completely separate agency. That's what I'm saying.
No, no. Well, I look at it this way, and just the way the amendment's written.
Well, can she answer
Okay,
that?
Senator Paris, maybe you can answer it.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Can it be applied to someone that's in DOE for a licensed social worker or psychologist that happens to be in DOE and for this internship?
I think, well, I mean, the money's going to go to Department of Public Health. I know Department of Public Health works closely with DOE, so I would think that there might be some MOU involved. I don't know, but this is right now what this amendment does. It assigns money to Department of Public Health.
Okay, thank you. Sir, I did get the answer I was looking for. And then just finally, does this have a retroactive application?
I beg your pardon?
Does it have a retroactive application? Can we look back
No,
in time? Well,
it's not. Look, this amendment does not apply that way. It's just asking for right now.
it doesn't preclude retroactive application.
It's $100,000, Senator Fisher. So it's not asking for anything retro. It's just the program exists, but there's no funding. And she wants to make sure there is funding there.
Well,
That's her.
can we find out if she agrees with you,
Senator
sir?
Paris?
Yeah, this is not retroactive.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the other hand that went up is Senator Tideway. And then I'll come back.
Okay, thank you,
Madam
Mr.
Vice.
Chair. This fund, it's obviously a special fund, right? That's built.
That's correct.
And what taxes or fees or anything that funds this Health and Human Services Fund? Oh, thank you.
Yes, Senator. The funding for this special funds comes from 10% of the proceeds from the sale and scrutinization of the allocation under the Master Settlement Agreement for settlements received from the tobacco industry.
So this is something that's monitored under the Attorney General's office too as well? I mean, this money is by an individual group, task group that oversees these funds that are being...
I believe most of the tobacco settlement funds that was awarded Guam
Right.
was given to the Attorney General.
General's office. Okay, that's what I thought. So there is no, Steve, the next one is, well, you didn't incorporate it into the general fund, I mean, not general fund, you didn't incorporate it into the budget bill. That's showing about a $400,000 balance, correct? There's about 400?
Senator, this particular fund is not included in the budget bill and annual budget bill simply because it doesn't generate money every year.
Okay.
We don't anticipate, we don't estimate how much money this particular fund comes in, so therefore it's not a viable fund source to fund programs in a current year.
Okay, and there are regulations and guidelines that are in place on how to spend any of these funds?
Yes, there is. Right now, there's a 75-25 allocation on how to utilize these funds.
Okay, and is this amendment following those guidelines?
From what Senator Sabina is submitting right now, it does seem to follow those guidelines.
Okay, thank you so much. That's good information, so everyone's very clear about this particular funding source and, you know, this. Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. I see I'm making you fall asleep a day. No, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, Vice Speaker, you have anything for this amendment?
Well, yes, the first question was answered by Steve earlier, so I think my question is and if anybody, the author or anybody can answer this, according to the portion of the GCA that established this fund, the total expenditures appropriated from the HAHS fund shall not exceed 80% of the available balance. So is the total of all amendments using this fund under the 80% threshold set by law?
Is that a question for the author?
Author or OFB? Author?
We'll start with the author if she has an answer. If not, we'll ask OFB to respond. If you can go ahead and repeat the question one more time, please.
Senator, I'll go ahead and answer the question for you. You're right. There is a provision in the existing law that caps it at 80%. But in the distribution of the 80%, there's also the 75-25 allocation and how you can spend that money. And I could read the 75-25 allocation for you.
Is there an established position within this department of a paid intern? And I'm trying to ascertain, one, if this agency is empowered to create these positions, and if they aren't already created, how long would it take? And since this amendment doesn't spell out how much these interns will be paid, does this agency have a uniform program established to ensure interns are selected and paid fairly?
Senator, I'm not too sure if there's a program in public health that's dedicated for this. The way the appropriation, the way the measure is being, it's an appropriation to public health to pay for certain type of expenses to be incurred by the department that will fit in line with the provision of this law. I'm not too sure if there's an actually a section or a division or program within public health that actually administers this particular function and duty.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the reason why I bring this up is we've gone through this line before about what was created, what was executive order, what was, and while I appreciate the intent of this amendment, I just want to note that for line agencies, most times paid positions must be created through an HR process and can't be invented with the wave of a magic pen. And I'm not saying this to be meaner. I'm just saying that we've had this conversation before, and I just want to make sure, are we within those parameters? I just don't want to make another empty promise, sir. We've talked about this and.
Understood. OFB, if you can respond to that, making sure that we're in line, so we can make sure this allocation or appropriation does go to those. Yeah, on this.
Currently, right now, Senator, according to the information we're receiving, public health is the agency actually to administer this program. Currently, it also includes the services of 2 new investigative and administrative positions to make the required inspection report for the purpose of implementing the department's responsibility as set forth in the federal tobacco settlement. So public health in itself, the whole department is actually the one entrusted to administer this program. It doesn't specifically give me a program title, it just says public health. And within that, within that authorization, it also allows the hiring of two individuals to, I guess, administer the program.
I think that's what I'm trying to find out, whether they already have these positions that are planned to fill, or if they have engaged in a process to create them, and do they have, I don't know, fellowship positions on their staffing pattern? Just, again, making sure.
I am having my staff look at it right now as we speak to see whether or not there are these two specific titles indicated in the staffing pattern. Give me a moment, I can get that for you.
Okay, so before we go on further, we'll just wait a couple minutes. Let's do a recess and wait for the response. I'd ask Mr. Guerrero now to, through his research, so I can rule whatever direction we need to go. Steve?
Okay, information we received is that this particular fund was created, I believe, back in 2017. It also listed or noted that there are certain things that need to be done in order for the program to be effective and administered properly. One of the things that we were informed is that the program has not established any rules and regs for the administration of the program. That being said, I believe from past experiences that if rules and regs are not set and in place, then basically the program cannot continue and operate. And in terms of any funds available to the program, those funds will probably be held in abeyance until such time those rules and regs are promulgated and in effect.
I have a point of information.
I beg your pardon?
I have a point of information. So we
for
did
it.
a FOIA of this, and there was 12 million in 2023, and now it's down to 400,000. So money has been used, it's been utilized, and we don't know what it's for, even though it states that it has to be appropriated. And so, yeah, it's odd to me too how the money's being spent, but it's not being appropriated. And so what I'm proposing here is an appropriation that fits the needs or the what the fund, it does fit what the criteria is for the expenditure of these funds. And when we talk about, education and tobacco prevention, we're talking, mental health issues, addiction issues. And so this is an appropriate use for this fund. And it does two things. It not only addresses the need, but it also provides a pipeline for these specialists that we are in dire need of. Every agency that you can think of, health agencies, even safety, including the police department, they have been a vacancy for so long regarding their psychologist positions. And so, if we can do something with this budget that's meaningful and impactful with a minimal amount of investment, I think this is a minimal amount of investment that can serve many agencies and serve the community as well. Since it's Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. But just trying to follow the trend of my colleagues here, Senator Paris, and as Mr. Guerrero has stated, you need the rules and regulations to govern the disbursement. And if it's true what you're saying, there's $12 million out there. I'm going to leave it to the oversight chair to investigate that before I stick my hands in there. Because if I do, then I'm going to open up everything. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and rule that we can't move on this because my colleagues have stated. Try to follow them as close as we can to the law. And the law states public health is the one that has to administer those funds, and they're going to have the rules and regulation. Okay? And with that, I'll rule this amendment out of order.
Sorry,
before... hold on, let me finish talking, and then I'll let you talk. Okay? There's no problem. I'm a very patient person. All right? And with that, I'll rule it out of order, and if you want to overrule the chair on this, we'll move from there.
So, sorry.
Senator Paris.
Point of information. So it doesn't state that rules and regs need to be promulgated. It says before any of the funds can be expended, from what I could tell. It says here the rules and regs are to be promulgated, but from what I can tell that it is not required for the expenditure of funds.
Senator Paris, that was clearly stated by Mr. Guerrero. I didn't read that. He did. I'm just following that line of thought and what everyone else has been stating. I'm trying to follow as close to all the colleagues, okay?
Mr. Chair, yeah.
Yes?
Can the OFE
Steve,
please reread
read it again.
what
All right.
you are referring to rule this out of order?
The balances I'm referring to is taking off the system we were looking at, and it shows here the balance as of, I believe, FY22 audit showed $420,617. There are no expenditures recorded in this year, in the year, so therefore we're just assuming that the balance is 420. That is the latest audit we have on this particular fund.
Yeah, but what part of that, Mr. Chair, makes it out of order? There's a balance.
No, I believe the chair is referencing it's out of order simply because the rules and regs haven't been promulgated, so.
Can you read that portion, then, whatever you're referring to? Because this was a law created by the legislature. Absolutely, the legislature has the power to appropriate that money.
Based on the enabling law that established public health as the state agency, it notes here, I believe on subsection B, it says promulgation of rules and regulations. The Department of Public Health is hereby authorized to promulgate rules and regulations regarding the implementation of the provision of this act, including revising and creating forms and other documents as are necessary in accordance with the procedures prescribed in the administrative adjudication law. That's what it references.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chair. Are we getting legal advice from the OFB,
Pardon?
Chair?
What was that?
No, I'm just reading what the law says. I was told to read what the law says.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
Yes.
Do you
On
have
your-
a motion to overrule the chair?
Well, on your
Just
ruling,
state it.
Mr. Chair, so it's, there is nothing in that law that does or could prohibit the legislature who made that law from allocating the funds that it assigns to public health for these programs. We do that with a lot of the special funds. For example, TAF is going to be used for certain purposes. We're appropriating it. The HPLO revolving fund, we are appropriating it. All of those funds, special funds, the survey and infrastructure funds, we are also appropriating it, even though there is law that says they shall, use it. So I just think there's really nothing to prevent us, and it's so very blatant to me when there was a $12 million balance, and now the fund is down to $420,000 without appropriation from the legislature or rules and regs. It has been spent, if that's correct. And so I think legally there's no prohibition from the legislature appropriating these funds, Mr. Chair. It's a special
Okay,
fund.
I'm trying to confirm that $12 million that's being stated. Because if there was 12 million, we would have done that ourselves. But
Well, it used to be,
Steve,
now
do
it's
you
down
have-
to 420.
where are you getting, do you have a copy of your FOIA that describes the 12 million? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I can request from my staff. But in the meantime, I'm asking if you can reconsider, because the language in the law doesn't state any prohibition of use of funds without the rules and regs. So we can get legal clarification on that if you can reconsider.
You can ask for the legal interpretation, but I already ruled out of order. If you want to,
Yeah, but Mr. Chair,
if you want to overrule
I
the
think
chair,
that
then
the
state
legal
it.
interpretation would provide whether or not your overruling was justified, with all due respect, sir.
No, you first have to vote to overrule the chair. You can I can give you a recess to get with the legal, but I already ruled. If you want to rule over the chair, then make that motion, then we move from there. It's that simple. All right? Is there any motion to overrule the chair?
Moment's recess to ask
Okay,
legal.
let's get a moment recess. Committee of the Whole is called back to order. Senator Perez, do you have any comment you want to make? I already made the ruling. Now, if you guys want to overrule the chair, feel free to do that. I'm a big guy. I can take a ruling over me. That's not a problem. I've been tried and true.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Perez, first. You want to recess, talk to legal. You have any comments? If
Yeah,
none,
so
then we'll move on.
according to legal, there's nothing here prohibiting the use of funds without the rules and regs. And in fact, the reality is that money has been spent without any appropriations. So
Okay,
I think that's, I asked my colleagues to reconsider. This is something that's very much needed in our government, to have these vacancies filled.
Senator Perez asked for the overruling of the chair. That's the key. Not your colleagues. It's non-debatable. You have to make that motion or not.
But
Senator Barnett, you wanted to comment?
I just want to make a point of information that I think the argument here is that you overruled, or you ruled the amendment out of order with
Yes.
flawed reasoning and
I did.
lack of justification, so that's all.
No, I had justification. Is
yeah,
there a
Mr.
motion?
Chair,
Is there a motion?
I've consulted with legal, and it was very clear. She said, represented to me, to Senator Perez, and to you, that the legislature has the authority to appropriate these funds, and that there was no impediment to that. So yes, I moved to overrule the chair, Mr. Chair, because this fund was created by the Guam Legislature. This fund can be appropriated by the Guam Legislature, and if your ruling is that we cannot appropriate this fund, then I hate to tell you, but we have so many funds in here that we are appropriating with very similar language that you might have to take out of our budget. We would not be able to fund the government without
Mr. Chair,
that.
this is not debatable, sir.
All right.
You are
I'm
the
making
chair.
a
Call
motion.
it.
Point of
Call
order.
for-
I am
Your-
making the motion.
Your
Call
motion is
for
to
a
overrule
motion
the
I
chair.
am
not
making a motion,
debatable.
Mr. Chair, and I don't
Please, with all due
know why I'm
respect.
being interrupted.
I'm not interrupting, sir. I'm doing a motion was made on the floor. It's not debatable. Call for the vote.
I'm not
That's all
debating
saying.
it. I am making the motion. You
The
can
motion is
not
to
debate it if
overrule
you
the
don't want, but
presider.
I am
It is
making a
not
motion,
debatable.
I'm not debating, I'm making a motion.
The motion
Madam-
is to...
Madam
This is
Speaker,
my motion.
your
I'm telling
motion-
everyone, I'm making a motion because based on legal, we are absolutely within our power to appropriate this money. Based on all law, we are within our
Okay.
power to appropriate money that we appropriated in the first place.
Madam Speaker, your
and the
motion is to overrule the chair,
Statutes that
correct?
we created.
Madam Speaker, it's overruled chair. Are there any objection to
I'm
that
sorry,
motion?
roll call, please. Roll call.
Are there any objection to that, to overrule the chair? There's an objection.
Senator.
Roll call,
Okay.
please. Roll call.
You want a
Point
roll
of
call?
information, Mr. Chair, I mean,
Why don't we go down the line? It's
I'm not
debatable.
debating, I'm using a point of information, but if we got the clarification from legal, why wouldn't you then support reconsidering the ruling of yourself?
I already made a motion, already, okay? So just leave with
I
leave
mean, it
with
appears
that.
like the clarification we're getting from legal is contradicting your
No.
ruling.
No, when I spoke to legal, I got an understanding from legal myself also, okay?
Point of
So-
information, sir.
Hold on, Madam Speaker. Senator Wood Fisher?
I would just clarify that our legal counsel is not the 16th senator.
That's correct.
It's this. Thank
All right,
you.
okay.
I'm
There's
so
an
happy.
objection, there's an
Mr. Chair,
objection.
yeah, point of inquiry. I'd like OFB to tell us how many other funds that
I
say
don't-
they shall be used
Sir,
by the
Madam
agency
Madam
we
Speaker,
are appropriating
Madam Speaker,
in this
that's
budget.
not the question.
That's
Madam
a point
Speaker,
of inquiry.
Madam
It's the same
Speaker-
question
Madam
before
Speaker,
us.
you're out of order, okay? We're gonna go down the list of what the motion was to overrule the chair. Let's stick with this. I don't need to go back and explain anything to you. You have a copy of the budget. You should know what, if you read it correctly. All
That's
right?
correct, Mr. Chair.
All
This
right,
amendment
okay.
has been in
So-
there
so
following
Madam
your
Sp-
rules.
Madam Speaker, the question is, the motion is to overrule the chair. There's one objection. And then there was a call for 3 roll calls. Okay. The clerk will now call the roll call. State, the question is to overrule the chair.
To overrule the
Senator
chair,
Burnett.
to rule the amendment out of
Madam
order.
Speaker, overrule the chair. That's all the question is, nothing else.
Senator Barnett, aye. Senator Blas.
Move to excuse members not present, sir.
Any objection? There being none, so move.
Senator Blas excused. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Dueñas. Senator Dueñas, nay. Senator Fisher. Senator Fisher, nay. Senator Lujan. Senator Lujan, aye. Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes. Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes, nay. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, nay. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, aye. Senator Canata. Senator Canata, nay. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, nay. Senator Siniclis. Senator Siniclis, nay. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton excused. Senator Titagui.
Aye.
Senator Titagui, aye. Speaker Tulahi. Speaker Tulahi, aye.
Motion fails. All right. The vote is 6 ayes, 7 nays, and 2 excuses. All right? Now we'll go ahead and move to the next amendment. The next amendment is almost pretty much the same, Senator Perez. And I'm going to rule it out of order.
Objection, Mr. Chair. She hasn't even made her amendment yet. She
Okay,
has
go ahead.
entitled to make her amendment.
Then go ahead and make your amendment, Senator Perez, and I'll just state his rule out of order. It's the same practice. All right? Go ahead, Senator Perez.
Okay, so is it the one about peer specialist?
That's correct.
Okay, so this amendment was created to help with the long-term recovery of those suffering from addiction. And so we hear about the detox, you know, how we have the acute response to addiction, which is the detox inpatient units, which we are in need of addressing, and which I'm glad we have an amendment that was passed to address at least part of their needs. So in addition to this acute response, there is also a long-term recovery that needs to be also addressed. And so what Guam Behavioral Health has is called a 24-hour warm line. And so what that is a service that provides recovery support and resources, including talking to peers who has experience in recovery, which is essential to connecting individuals to these resources up front. The other thing this long-term recovery, this amendment would do, it would fund peer specialists. And so peer support specialist services and warm lines are an integral part of recovery efforts necessary for our community. Peer specialists have been contracted and utilized at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and they provide a source of long-term recovery support for individuals after detox and inpatient process, of which individuals, especially in early recovery, are vulnerable to relapse without support and services towards maintaining recovery. It is especially important to bear in mind that long-term recovery services are necessary to support a person's transition after detox and inpatient, as these recovering individuals often have to make crucial decisions regarding their living and working arrangements and interpersonal relationships in long-term recovery. As people in recovery themselves, supporting peer specialist services also helps these individuals to maintain their own recovery relative to multiple studies and recovery resources that explain the importance of service work for individuals to maintain their recovery. In speaking with Guam Behavioral Health, they also messaged me, so I might want to pull that up. So they basically reconfirm, they reiterate the importance of this part of the funding, that these, it would fund these services to place individuals who have successfully detoxed into a sober recovery setting where they can receive treatment and substance use education. and be in an environment that supports their recovery without temptations they would be subjected to if they return home immediately. And so, you know, in addition to funding the detox unit, I think we need to also shine a light on this part of recovery that is so crucial. And, you know, when we talk about the meth epidemic, we need to make sure that we have a holistic view, a holistic approach to ensure that the transition is made successfully. And so, again, you know, my amendment is to appropriate money from the Health and Human Services Fund, and rightfully so, because that is what this fund is intended to do. It's intended to address addiction. And this is a $200,000 investment into back into our community to give people, you know, a second chance. And this is going to go towards the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center to fund professional services for certified peer specialists and for 24-hour warm line and peer recovery specialist services for individuals with substance use disorder and long-term recovery services, which may be contracted out to non-governmental organizations, which they are doing. And, you know, we are facing not just meth problems, opioid, now fentanyl. You know, I asked for, you know, the reconsideration of this body to allow the use of this fund. And, you know, again, if I can reiterate what it states about promulgation, or what it says about the expenditures. So the Health and Human Service Fund shall be expended by the legislature by legislative appropriation as follows: 75% to finance various healthcare programs and projects and other educational programs for tobacco prevention, and 25% to finance advanced technical equipment to persons with disabilities and other health programs specifically authorized by the Guam Legislature. So it is within the, I guess, the jurisdiction of our body to, again, determine the needs of our community and how to really change and transform, be a transformative agent in all of this. I think this $200,000 is definitely going to be needed and used. As you know, there are many individuals that are suffering from addiction. I think this is a well-spent investment, and I ask for my colleagues' support to think about the needs of our community and to address it.
Senator Perez.
And if I can also add, if you look at the law itself, if I could just reiterate the law, in section 221105, it states that in subsection B, promulgation of rules and regulations. The Director of Department of Public Health is hereby directed to promulgate rules and regulations regarding implementation of the provisions of this act, including revising or creating forms and other documents as are necessary in accordance with the procedures prescribed by administrative adjudication law. So again, there wasn't any prohibition on this expenditure of funds. This fund had millions of dollars before, and as late as 2023, there were, if I can look at this, I think it was $12 million. And so I don't know how that money was spent or where it was spent, but it definitely was not appropriated last budget. And so, you know, if we're really talking about accountability and transparency, I agree that we need to fund this much-needed service for our community in a very transparent and accountable way. And I ask for my colleagues' support and consideration. Since Masi.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Senator Perez, line of what I did with the previous amendment, in the absence of the rules and regulation, again, I will rule this out of order. All right? There's reservations, I do that, but I'm just being consistent with my previous
Mr.
declaration.
Chair, please make an exception. She read the law out that says it's subject to legislative appropriation. It's very clear.
Madam Speaker, it's not debatable. Senator
I know it's not a debatable, Mr. Chair, but, you know, the the law that was just explained earlier by Senator Paris, that is law. It says that it allows for an appropriation, right? I mean, I'd just like to hear that law again, if I can, Mr. Chair, if you can read the law where it says that we have every right for an appropriation, if I may, Mr. Chair, can... Also, you know, it's just such a shame. We have money that's sitting in a bank. It's just going to sit there while we have the opportunity to use it for good use. Good use. Why are we having money sit in a bank account when it can go out there and be used to help people on Guam? The money's there, and the ability for us to spend it is also in law. So that's my question, Mr. Chair. I just want to hear that law again, allowing this body to appropriate that fund.
All right. Let me just reiterate what I stated from the previous amendment, okay? I can understand where you come from, but because what was read by the OFB to this body, the law, he read the law.
No, he did not, Mr. Chair.
He didn't read the law?
No, he did not.
Mr. Steve, can you read the law?
He never read the law. He only read about the expenditures of public health, but he never read the law. Can he do that, please? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point of information, Mr. Chair. I would just ask that now that the law has actually been read out by a senator, that we go back and reconsider your flawed ruling from earlier.
Stand by. I ready? You just want to hear it, but I made a ruling case. So, Steve, go ahead and read the law, please. And state the code and everything, so we make sure we understand.
Just for everybody listening, this law that I'm reading is found in the Guam Code Annotate, Title 5, Article 11, Chapter 22. And I will reiterate what it says. We're talking about the rules and regulations.
The appropriation.
The
use of
appropriation.
this fund.
Hey,
The use of the fund.
Madam Speaker and my colleagues, let Steve read it.
But he has to read what Senator Paris, and if he concurs with the law being in the books that Senator Paris just read for this body, that's the one that I'm asking for, Mr. Chair, is if Steve can pull up that part of the law that allows this body to appropriate. And if I may ask, Mr. Chair, Senator Paris, what is the Guam Code Annotated, the title and chapter in which you read?
It's Title 5, Chapter 22, Article 11, Section 2211.005, subsection B as in boy. Promulgation of rules and regulations. Oh, the
That's
appropriation.
exactly
So the appropriation part
That's
is
exactly the
also-
provision I read earlier.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Now,
Thank you.
No, stop right now, everyone.
Sorry.
No.
That is not the right one. Give her a chance, okay? Quit bullying her. Give her a chance to give the right citation, please, Mr. Chair.
Senator
It's
Tidewi-
only fair.
Senator Tidewi, colleagues, I don't bully anybody here. I'm too old for that bullying, that statement, okay? So make it very clear. I made a ruling. You want to overrule me again? Not a problem. It's non-debatable. Do I have a motion to overrule me?
Mr. Chair.
And you can ask Mr. Guerrero to read it again.
Yes, read
Make a motion.
the law.
No, make
Yes,
a motion
Mr.
to
Chair.
overrule me.
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Tidewi. Madam Speaker,
5
you want to...
GCA 221003, purpose and expenditures.
Point of
The
information,
Health
Mr.
and
Chair.
Human Services Fund shall be expended by legislative
Speaker.
appropriation.
Point of
Speaker.
information.
Speaker,
That's 22103.
you're
BBMR
out
is
of
reading
order.
22105B,
Speaker,
which talks
Speaker,
about rules and
Speaker.
regs, but it's got nothing to do with the
Speaker.
appropriation, Mr. Chair, of these
Point of
funds.
information.
This is a
Speaker.
fund created by the Guam Legislature. And we've
You
talked
know-
to
you know what?
legal, we've read the statute to
Thank you.
you, we've read the statute to OFB. No one is saying that we cannot appropriate these funds except for you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. The law says we can.
I am getting my
And my
advice
colleague has
from
found the money.
Ma-
She's been creative to
Madam
overcome
Speaker, you're
all
out
the
of order, Madam
barriers.
Speaker. Let's go to recess. Let's go to recess at this time. Committee of the Whole is called back to order. Colleagues, I made a ruling already. I spoke to the sponsor of the amendment. If there is a motion to rule the chair, overrule the chair, please feel free to proceed with that, and then let's move on. Is there a motion? There being sent, Madam Speaker, state your motion, please.
Mr. Chair. In light of 221003, that says the Health and Human Services Fund shall be expended by legislative appropriation as follows: to finance various healthcare programs and projects and other educational programs for tobacco prevention, and to finance advanced technological equipment to persons with disabilities and other health programs specifically authorized by the Guam Legislature. 22107, appropriation and exemption, that says the fund shall not be used for any purpose other than those enumerated or reasonably inferred herein, or for purposes other than those relating to health care. And 22108, deposit, that says all monies deposited into the Health and Human Services Fund shall be expended exclusively for the purposes enumerated in 221003, and the general intent of this act, which is for healthcare. These are tobacco settlement funds. The amendment is perfectly in line with tobacco settlement. So yes, I do not want to fight with you on this, Mr. Chair. I respectfully ask that we reconsider and ask for your vote on that reconsideration as well, Mr. Chair, or to overrule the chair.
Thank you. The motion is to overrule the chair. Do we have an objection? There's one objection. All in favor of overruling the chair, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion fails. Let's proceed to the next amendment. Senator Parrish, you have two amendments. They're almost identical. And in line with what I already ruled out of order, Madam Senator Parrish, but we'll go ahead and read the amendment, please. But they're two identical, so I don't know which one you want to dispose of.
Yeah, so the goal was to get also internships for Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. Again, we have a lack of mental health care specialists here on Guam. And this is really, I think, a solution to the problem that we're facing. And, we're dealing with an aging workforce. Some of this services has been, contracted out at a higher cost. And, if we're looking to really address the mental health issues in our community stemming from addiction issues, this is really critical that we address this now. This is something that can have immediate impact, versus, these are professionals that are already at the terminal end of their education. I've seen many vacancies within our budget in regards to social workers, psychologists, right? And you could see the names still, the ones that retired. And, there's more to come. And so if we don't do something today, it's not going to get any better if we don't direct the funding to really critical positions within our government. I'm asking this body to really think about, after looking at the law, looking at the need in our community. This is a minimal amount to ask from this legislative body to address the huge need that we face with addiction. We know about the vape addiction epidemic amongst our youth. If this is just another means to address that. I mean, we are passing laws to provide stricter requirements for licensing, for even increasing the fines for those that violate or don't comply with the laws. And so the more we see enforcement, we also need to back it up with cessation programs, mental health support for our youth. And, especially this vulnerable population where addiction has a longer-term impact for those at that age versus an adult. You know, their brains are still developing. And if we really can think about and connect with the need in our community so that we can just, you know, follow the existing law, you know, following, I think, you know, look at it, the 12 million has been spent, but we don't know where it went. Here I'm asking for $100,000 to go towards internships to help reverse the brain drain of these critical positions that can help address our ENDS epidemic here on Guam, as well as other addiction issues. This is a crying need, and I really ask, you know, I'm really appealing to your I guess, sense of duty, sense of, I guess, your heart. Really, I'm speaking to your heart right now. You know, let's think about those that are in need of these services, and I'm really asking this body to think about this. And, you know, we're not just, it's doing two things at once, or maybe three things, who knows. It's addressing the epidemic that we're experiencing. We're reversing the brain drain little by little by filling these critically vacant critical positions in our government.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Is it point of,
Oh, sorry.
are you done already, Senator Barris?
So yeah, that's why I'm proffering this amendment to allow for paid internships within the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center.
All right. Speaker Chulai, you wanted to speak on the amendment?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just, I know the previous rulings, the chair was relying on an OFB passage that read a passage regarding rules and regulations, and that we have read the statutes into place that allow legislative appropriation of these funds. I also, the point of order is that the language in this amendment also says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, this money shall be appropriated as follows. And that, to me, should really settle any and clarify any perceived impediment to its passage, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, during the recess, my colleagues, before I rule, I spoke to the acting director of public health, and she advised me that the rules and regulations has been established. The program doesn't exist yet. What are the conditions of the settlement from the tobacco industry that added these funds? It didn't come from us. It came from the settlement. And once that program is established, then we can move on it. But there's no program for us to be drawing funds from. And with that, based on, stand by now, allow you to speak already, now it's my turn. Based on that, my ruling is that it's out of order. And with that, if there's a motion
Mr.
to
Chair,
overrule me,
point of
feel free.
order. Point of order.
Point of order, go ahead, and
Yes,
then we
Mr. Chair.
move on. There's no debate on it,
The
but go
amendment
ahead.
establishes the use of the funds. So whatever the acting director is telling you they don't have certain programs, that's up to them. But the tobacco funds were within the legislature's purview to spend. That's exactly what we are doing by this amendment. That's exactly what we did by previous law. This is another law. There's nothing that the acting director can do or say to impede the legislature's authority to appropriate the funds. It's very clear the settlement was subject to legislative appropriation, Mr. Chair. And that's exactly what this is doing. And it's legislative appropriation to a certain program established right here, internships for these positions for tobacco addiction. And
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I made the ruling. It's out of order. Is there a motion to overrule the chair again? Please state it if there's one. No more explanation. Is this a,
I move,
You
Mr.
move to
Chair,
overrule the
that
chair.
in light of the statutes that are very clearly authorizing legislature to appropriate funds, in light of the Organic Act that very clearly authorizes the legislature and not some acting chair from the Guam Department of Public Health to appropriate funds, Mr. Chair, and not OFB either, but the Guam legislature to appropriate funds. Any fund, all funds, subject to appropriation. And the statute says it like 3 times. I read it out loud. It says these funds are subject to legislature appropriation for health care programs. This amendment that the proffer is offering is, she found this money, even though our hands were tied to use every other funding source, FY24 excess, FY25, you've tied our hands. We can't raise the government revenue as the fiscal team from the governor's office recommended. She found a unique funding source, and now instead of allowing an appropriation clearly authorized by law, we're making random rulings again that we cannot appropriate funds. So who can appropriate funds in the government of Guam besides the Guam legislature, Mr. Chair? I challenge your ruling, and I ask for an overrule of that ruling. And with all due respect, Mr. Chair, we have come through all these proceedings with trying to abide by your rules, contorting ourselves as a legislature as to what we can or cannot do, but to deny use of tobacco settlement monies for healthcare purposes because somebody said we don't have rules or programs in place? That's ludicrous, Mr. Chair. It's not authorized by law. That's not some kind of legal ruling that says the public health can say we can or cannot authorize appropriation of the Health and Human Services Fund. It's wrong, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's a motion to overrule the chair. Is there any objection to the overrule chair? There is one. All in favor of overruling the chair, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion fails. Madam Speaker, your amendment is now up. Nurse recruitment incentive, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next 3 amendments, they all go together because one is to appropriate funds that are de-appropriated from another area. So we're trying to do that according to your rules. This is $200,000 from HRRA. I also did it in one paper to make it absolutely clear, but it's to take $200,000 from the HRRA appropriation, which we saw would be an increase in FY 2025, arguably not necessary. With this amendment, they would keep their continuing FY24 levels, and this would take away that excess $200,000 that was given to them by OFB and put it towards the nurse recruitment incentive program, $100,000, and $100,000 towards social worker recruitment program incentive. This would allow for $10,000 stipends for those who are recruited to the Guam Memorial Hospital and those who are recruited to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, where we lack social workers and CPS for critical needs for children, and at the hospital we lack nurses, and this is just another tool for them to bring on some additional. This appropriation, just $100,000 again, colleagues, would allow 10 nurses this stipend at the Guam Memorial Hospital. And as we know, the number of beds that we can open at the hospital depend on the number of nurses that we can recruit over there. And they've tried salary raises. We've tried to fund scholarships, which are being diluted now. According to this budget, we've done salary raises. They are still being out-recruited by Guam Regional Medical Center and other places because of salaries and other programs. So this is just to help them with another tool to recruit these nurses so that we don't have to pay the off-island nurse recruitment contracts as much as possible. So this is,
Yes.
again, 200,000 from HRRA, which leaves HRRA with its FY2024 funding levels, so no harm. And it moves 100,000 to the social work recruitment. Again, social workers, there's such a shortage that we cannot find and spend enough time to find placements for all of those 600 some kids that are foster children at this time. So the need is great. I hope there's no debate about the need. And I'm trying again to follow your rules as much as I can, Mr. Chair, by putting these separate, putting these together, but they do exactly the same thing. So I would ask my colleagues that this will not harm HRRA. It allows HRRA to remain intact, but it just takes this 200,000, 100 each for GMH, 100 for social work. And we know that GMH actually is in the multiple millions of dollars short according to what they've requested. Our hands are tied from giving them FY24 excess monies, that is real money, cash, because of the rulings that have been made in here, that we cannot use that we can no longer use FY25 excess revenues. We cannot raise the revenue projection as recommended by the governor's fiscal team. So I ask that we were told we have to take the money from some appropriation, other appropriation in this bill. So this is the best I could come up with the least harm, Mr. Chair. So that's my amendment.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and yes, we did speak about this on Chapter 5, and because there was no amendment, I advise you to go ahead and put it in miscellaneous. And you put it in miscellaneous now. My colleagues, this is to, notwithstanding any provisions, as it was read, two sections of appropriating 100,000 for the nurse recruitment incentive and 100,000 for the social worker recruitment incentive and 10,000 for the stipends. Are there anyone who would like to speak to this? Senator Canata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I hear the reasoning of the previous speaker regarding this intent for this proposal. I just caution or I have my reservations regarding this because it seems to me that even if we give incentive pay of $10,000, it doesn't bind them to serving the government of Guam, if I'm correct, right? So if we give them $10,000 today and one quarter walks, right, or they continue on with a year, they can walk away at the end of the year and go back to GRMC or go back to federal side of employment. And that's my caution here, is that we're giving them a check for 10 grand and then we don't bind them for anything. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Madam Speaker, if you can
Yes.
speak to that.
Sure.
comment.
Thank you, Sitos Masi, and thank you for the question. So yes, I agree with the previous speaker, and I have included in these amendments a provision that says, as a condition for accepting these benefits, each recipient shall agree to accept employment as a social worker or the nurse and then the respective departments for a minimum of 2 years. And then they shall submit a report to the speaker regarding these the use of these incentives, so we can monitor whether they are effective or not.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Does anyone else like to speak to this amendment? I'm looking for anybody's hand. Senator Nicholas, are you attempting to?
Yes, sir. You know, I was, thank you,
Nicholas.
Mr. Chair. I was just kind of thinking how we can get more nurses instead of, it looks like we're probably just going to get 10 nurses out of this. Why don't we, was thinking maybe make it a $5,000 stipend so we could hire 20 nurses and put a stipulation for 1 year where you get more nurses rather than just 10.
Can you try that one more time? What was the statement? I'm in support of that, getting more nurses in some form.
Yeah, you know, so I was thinking of proposing an amendment for making it 10 to 5,000. We can hire 20 nurses and make the stipulation for 1 year. It's kind of like the Army.
So you're looking at on letter C.
Yes, sir.
Is changing the 10 to 5.
So 5.
I don't even see the number of people that they're going to give the stipend to. So I'm trying to understand.
So on letter B, it's 10,000 to the Department of for the nurses, right? So that's $10,000 each. That's 10 nurses. Is that correct?
Madam Speaker, maybe you can answer. That becomes 10, and I think the amendment he's proffering is to reduce it to 5, so it'll be 20 nurses.
Yes, 20 nurses.
For the stipend.
Yeah, and then, you know, just allow them for 1 year so that they can, you know, decide whether they like working for the government or not. And
okay, well, okay, so you're proffering that amendment to the amendment, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay. Has everybody heard?
Without it having in writing?
Well, we'll talk it through, and then it's simple. Line out. It's not hard. Okay, anyone would like to speak to the amendment? Of the amendment, Senator Tyree.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we all know that many of these nurses, they're getting offered quite a bit of money to go to other locations, clinics most especially. I mean, they're really hurting for having nurses there. But we stand to also lose a lot of our nurses going off island because the money is so much more than what we can offer. I don't think $5,000 is going to entice a nurse to stay, you know, only 1 year. I don't think she'd rather just go to the States. I mean, $5,000 is not a whole lot these days. You and I both know that. We talked about going into a grocery store and getting a bag of grocery and almost costing us $100 just for 5 items. So I think the incentive here is to provide a little bit more that would entice them. It's about the money. Even if we get 10, as the author of the amendment mentioned, that we can have the beds, but if we don't have the nurses to man them, we might as well not have the beds. So even with 10, to stay at least 2 years, we all know that even 2 years is very short, let alone 1 year, and then they're ready to go out the door. It's just not enough time. You know, I understand what the senator's trying to do is to get more nurses, but I mean, everybody is competing for them and offering a bigger purse than 10,000. If we lower it down to 5, I don't think we can be even in the game, in the running. So I have to object to this amendment to the amendment and keep it at where it's at right now. I mean, it's not like we have a huge pool to pull from in the first place, you know, to get 20 nurses to stay for 1 year for $5,000 more. I don't think we have that pool to choose from. So I think we would be very lucky to get at least 10 nurses, and $10,000 is a little bit more of an incentive. So I have to object to the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this amendment to the amendment? Senator Canata.
I would just like to make the amendment, but I guess because the amendment is stating to cut to 5K, just leave it as 10K, but strike the amendment to the amendment to be 3 years instead of 1 year. Can we do that?
Okay, let's dispose of his amendment. Then we go to your amendment that you wanted from 2 to 3.
Okay.
Correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's what I'm hearing, right? Let's dispose of his amendment first. Anyone who would like to speak to the amendment? To the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment to the amendment, I think we keep it at 10,000. I don't support giving the nurses less of an incentive. And then, you know, it's going to be Cal and Steve Miller. If they get $5,000, only have to stay 1 year, take the money and run. So let's keep the amendment intact in its original form. Sidos Masi.
All right. Anyone else would like to also speak to the amendment, of the amendment? Madam Speaker, the author of the amendment.
Situs Masi, yeah, I appreciate the amendment to the amendment's intent, but it's true that our graduates are really so few. So for example, in spring 2023, there were 17 nurse graduates, all of them passing the NCLEX. They come out of UOG so awesome. And however, they were entirely recruited by GRMC. So the salary differential, GMH has very much, and the recent nurse pay raise has tried to make them equal, still not equal. And they've even added on at GMH a nurse differential. And so adding all that together with the 18% salary, still not equal to the GRMC. So yeah, I just feel like the 10 is more attractive, and we really need to make it attractive because, yeah, the 5, it's like a plane ticket nowadays. It's, I just feel like the more money, the better. I wish we could put more here. Sitos Masi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Does anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Senator Zinkers, do you want to close on your amendment, or?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to spread out the money. You know, I figured, hey, you know, why 10? Let's get 20 at 5 and reduce it to 1 year. It just makes, you know, just makes sense the way I'm looking at it. Trying to get the best value for 100 grand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Understood. Okay. My understanding with the comments made by my colleagues, there's an objection to this amendment, to the amendment. Are anyone in favor of the amendment as amended, or to the amendment as amended? Oh wait, hold on. Are there any, let me start with, are there any objection to the amendment? To the amendment. And I see an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion fails. We're back to the amendment, the original amendment, okay? Does anyone like to speak to the amendment? Because I've heard my colleagues speak basically on it. Senator Canata, you had an amendment. Did you want to proffer it, or never mind? Okay. So, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, and if the author of the amendment can yield, if she does have the information, what is the amount that is being provided or offered to nurses to go to GRMC as opposed to GMH?
Madam Speaker, if you yield to the question.
Yes, I'll read what I have. I'm sure there are, you know, exceptions, but generally, the entry-level salary for staff nurse 1 at GMH is $23.57. That's with the recent 18% salary increase. The GRMC equivalent is $30.99 an hour. So $23.57 versus $30.99, which is $7 higher. GMH offers 25% work differential, which might bring that up to $29.46 per hour. But GRMC has night and weekend differential added on, tuition assistance for professional development, a 401k, and of course the facilities.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And you know, that's important, because then when you try to figure, you know, the impact of a $10,000 bonus, you know, when you do just the simple math and whether or not this nurse, and let's be honest, okay, if the nurse is going to make better getting the incentive pay and bonus as opposed to just outright getting hired by another entity. So I appreciate the information. So it makes it clear that this gives us some competition, if you will, to be able to recruit the nurses. So I appreciate it. I support the amendment.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Otherwise, do you want to close, Madam Speaker? Or, okay. Are there any objection to the amendment? I see no hands. You have an objection to the amendment? Okay, there's an objection. All in favor of the amendment? Please raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. Motion passes. Let's, Madam Speaker, I think you have one more, I think, or no? I think this wraps it all up, right? All right, so that being said.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I make a motion to, for you to reconsider your rulings from earlier? Just, because the statute had been read out, and I think that was very clear about our ability to appropriate the funds, and I know that you agree, Mr. Chair, and so just asking for the motion to reconsider on Senator Perez's amendments so we can do the right thing.
So you're asking, no, the right thing is whatever we follow, okay?
Yeah,
okay,
but
so your motion is to reconsider the first
just
one?
with all due respect, Mr. Chair, I think the reading of the law was very clear and it conflicts with the justification for your ruling.
So you're asking to reconsider which one?
The actions of the body? Yeah.
On which one? The most
Senator
previous?
Perez's amendments, I guess we'll start with maybe the first one that you ruled out of order.
The first one. Okay. No. Owen, you're asking to reconsider the ruling of the body.
Only because the law was very clear about our ability to appropriate the
I
funds.
understand. But you're asking us to reconsider the action of the body on the most previous one first, okay?
Yes, sir.
We'll go backwards.
We'll start with the amendment to page 117, which is appropriation to Department of Public Health and Social Services for paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowships.
There's a motion to reconsider the motion of the body, and that was to overrule the chair, which failed. Are there any objection to reconsider? There are two. All in favor of reconsidering, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Senator Barnett? Okay. All right, we're done with,
Can I make a motion to reconsider the actions of the body relative to Senator Perez's amendment to page 17 that appropriates the GBHWC for substance use disorder, peer specialists, and long-term recovery services? Again, Mr. Chair, I think that we read out black and white. The law is very, very clear, and I just don't see the justification for you ruling these amendments out of order.
is this the one on the paid graduate and postdoctoral?
This is for GBWIC, for
this-
substance use disorder peer specialists and long-term recovery services, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the sum of $200,000 from the Health and Human Services.
Okay,
Fund.
there's a motion to reconsider. Are there any objection? There is an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion fails.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to also make a motion to reconsider the actions of the body.
Sorry, if I can, go ahead. Go ahead, and I want to have a point of information afterwards.
Okay. Relative to Senator Perez's amendment that appropriates to GBWIC for paid graduate and postdoctoral fellowships. Again, Mr. Chair, the law was read out multiple times, and I think it's very clear about what we're authorized and able to do in this session. So, I'm not sure what the nature of the objection is. I don't know if we all need to pop up the black and white of the law up on the big screen, because it just really doesn't make sense to object to this when, again, the law was read out, the appropriate section, by a few members. So I don't understand the objection, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. There's a motion to reconsider the decision of the body on the amendment you referred to.
Yeah.
Are there any objection? There's objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion fails. We're done now with Chapter 11.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I can ask, my staff's been trying to submit amendment for Chapter 12, but it's being rejected.
Let's then take 5 minutes and
Okay.
we'll give you time to load
Sure.
it up.
Thank you.
Okay? We're in recess for 5 minutes. Committee of the Whole is called back to order, and just for advice to my colleagues, nothing was rejected for 12 because they're receiving. Remember, I am now closing Chapter 11. Okay, Chapter 11 is now closed. Chapter 12 is now open, and any amendment that's coming in, it was really for Chapter 12. Okay, now we're on Chapter 12, my colleagues. Let's do a quick recess because they're running the copy so everybody gets it. But keep in mind, if there's any amendment on Chapter 12 that deals in 24, 25, it's going to be ruled out of order. So I'm going to have the clerk start cleaning it up so you only get what doesn't have 24, 25. Okay? Thank you. Senator Cananta, you have something? Otherwise, we're going to recess.
I just want to clarify, Mr. Chair, that whatever amendments are introduced in the drive, right? There's nothing more, right? Because you already opened this chapter.
It's already open. Nothing else will be received.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Senator Barnett.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to, if it's okay, make a motion to recess till tomorrow morning.
Objection.
That's a very good motion. I
Thank
was
you, sir.
considering that, but I need to find out exactly how many amendments we have.
Okay.
I'm trying to speed up. We only got two chapters left, 12, 13, and we're pretty much almost done. Okay, and I'm just trying to speed it up. We'll at least do another 30 minutes, and then we'll
I have no
recess.
problem. I could stay till midnight if it's required.
At least 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? Okay, up to 5.
That's that.
All right? Okay, so recess, and hopefully we'll get the documents fast, and then we'll recess at 5. Thank you. Committee of the Whole is called to order. Chapter 12 is ready, has been opened. We will now proceed with the first amendment introduced, and that happens to be Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, it's a two-page amendment. Looks good to me. You can speak on it?
Mr. Chair. This amendment is one of many I had proffered in this budget bill to include a $10 million amendment for Guam Department of Education of Facilities and Maintenance, $3 million for school security, and an additional $1.5 million to the Guam Police Department for school resource officers. However, the events of this morning and the motion that passed is preventing us from addressing amendments of the appropriations, and so this is my next amendment, and it is a two-pager, and it establishes the GPD retention program, which provides police officers with a retention bonus, and they can only avail of this retention bonus if they have achieved a satisfactory rating, and if they have also not been subject to any reprimands or investigations or other behavioral and performance infractions. And another condition of receiving this bonus is that they achieve their continuing education units, Mr. Chair, and that's 10 contact hours of experience in a structured continuing education experience class, seminar, retreat, practicum. A lot of these, or all of these continuing education credits are available through the Police One training module, which is run out of the Peace Officer Standards and Training, the Post Commission. And so I ask my colleagues' support of this amendment, which, again, the intent of it is to establish the Guam Police Department as the premier law enforcement agency. As we all know, 25% retention pay was just studied, authorized, and implemented by the administration. However, given the nature of these increases, I don't think it's far-fetched to anticipate other increases on pay for other law enforcement officers. And so I feel this amendment really solidifies retention incentives for the Guam Police Department. It's supported by the Chief of Police. I also received positive testimony from the Director of the Post Commission, and it has the support of the rank and file in the Guam Police Department, sir. And so the bonus program would be implemented with the passage of this amendment. However, these bonuses would not be paid out for 3 years. There is a Part 2 section here, which is a retention bonus for retiring officers. I asked my colleagues to support this amendment, and this section, which, you know, it's speaking to a lot of officers who have accumulated, 20, 30 years. They're near that, over actually that retirement zone. And so the conversation I had with some of them, they were like, Senator, what about those of us who are ready to retire? And Lana, we kind of make it to the 3 years. And so I want to be able to thank them for their service and let them avail of this incentive if they're eligible for retirement. So again, I don't want to speak too long on this amendment. I ask my colleagues' support of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Does anyone like to speak to this amendment? I'm good with it. But anyone, Senator Blas, and then followed by the Vice Speaker. Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if the author of the amendment can yield, it's with regard to subsection 77503, returning police officers. It says any former Guam police officer that qualifies for reinstatement shall be eligible for a retention bonus 3 years following the date of reinstatement. Is that, I'm a little confused here. Is he qualified for bonus? So he has to be in, once he's reinstated, he has to be in for 3 years? 3 years more?
Correct, sir.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's, okay. Mr. Chair, you and I would have benefited from this if we were still in the police department. The question though I have is how would this bonus fit in with the officers' retirement when they basically calculate the retirement in as far as annual?
Do you yield to the question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's separate from the retirement and it doesn't contribute to the retirement rate.
All right, Senator Blas.
Where does that say that here?
Does it state it anywhere there?
It's not stated that it doesn't contribute to the retirement, and it's also not stated that it does.
Senator Blas.
Are we going to just leave that open-ended for interpretation? Because I can see the problem that it's going to cause.
Do you have an amendment to his amendment so we can secure it? Because otherwise we'd have to get the retirement fund to get involved here on this one. Otherwise, we just need, maybe the author can.
Just on a point of information, Mr. Chair, there is a line in here that I'm going to have to do a strike through on, so I could whip out an amendment that says it shall not accrue towards retirement if that would please the good senator from Barragata.
I mean, if that's the intent, then if he's going to proffer it, I'll wait to see it, and then I'll discuss it from there.
Okay, maybe Senator Barnett, you can state it so we'll know where it's at, and then everyone can see it. And then we can follow it up with a write-up, but at least to be stated. I think everyone will just be able to follow that. Senator Barnett?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Chair. I could just create a new section.
Where's the strikeout first?
Well, if you're going to hold back until he makes that.
I'll hold back until he's.
Okay, and then we'll come back to you, Senator Barnett, because we're going to go to the Vice Speaker next. So, is it in line with pretty much what they're bringing up?
No, I have a different perspective on this measure.
Okay, would you like to speak on it, or
yes,
okay.
sir. But I was waiting for the conversation between the two of you if there was an additional amendment.
Just a point of information, Mr. Chair, the retirement fund doesn't include non-base pay. So this is not relative to base
That's
pay.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
So I feel that should, we're good.
That should suffice.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Me or him?
Senator Blas, are you aware of that? None of this here is impacts their base pay, so that's why it wouldn't impact the retirement fund.
You know, you got to remember that we've amended and we've changed, law enforcement retirement and retention over the last few years. That it's not your atypical. It's not your typical retirement plan, and so we've got to be sure of that. Okay, because in some cases it is, some things that are included into the base pay for law enforcement are not necessarily included for the rest of the government of Guam, and that was by statute. So we've got to be very careful with that.
Just on a point of information, Mr. Chair, again, it's my understanding that non-base pay is no longer included in retirement. And again, this retention bonus is not part of the base pay for Guam Police Department officers who would receive it.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to there are basically 3 different retirement systems that exist.
That's correct.
Guam, okay? You got your defined benefit, your defined contribution, and your 1.75. Now, depending on where that officer fits, it may or may not.
Understood.
That's why I bring that concern up.
Yes. Well, what we'll do is we'll just continue on with the conversation on the amendment, because we're going to recess on your amendment, and then by tomorrow.
I'm not opposed to adding a simple sentence in there that says this bonus shall not,
But you can add that as we go through the questions.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Speaker, to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I certainly support the intent of this bill, and I have 3 questions. But I am curious if the author has some information that can help me answer some of my concerns. So, Mr. Chair, the first is, if this proposal was introduced through a bill, and if that bill had a public hearing. That was my first question.
If you yield to the question, Senator Barnett.
I sure will yield, Mr. Chair. Yes, this amendment is derived from a bill, and yes, that bill had a public hearing, and it received overwhelming favorable testimony from Police Chief Steve Ignacio, Post-Commission Director John Lazam, I think even DOC Director, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Berdallo had testified in support of it. And then it also has overwhelming support from the hardworking men and women in the Guam Police Department who really see this as an additional way we can, remedy a lot of the retention and recruitment issues that the Guam Police Department is currently facing.
That's great, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
My second question I have for the good author from Jonia is, if there's an estimate, if perhaps the entire force on staff today stays the initial 3 years of this retention bonus program, how much will it cost? What are we looking at in as far as numbers?
Do you yield to that question, Senator Barnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mean, the math is really simple. If we're looking at, let's say, 250 of Guam's finest are eligible for this retention bonus, and we implement it today, and they go the entire 3 years, and they get the continuing education credits, they get the satisfactory rating, they don't have a history of disciplinary action during the 3 years prior to the date of enactment, then the total would be $2.5 million.
$2.5 million? 3 years from today, basically.
Thank you.
Madam Vice?
Yes, I just wanted to see if there was a number there, and thank you for that answer. And my last question on this deals with the CEOs. Are the CEUs that this amendment calls for readily available on island, or are these continuing education units offered through the Guam Federation of Teachers or another group that helps provide low to no cost continuing education?
Senator Barnett, do you yield to that?
Thank you. That's a great question. And the answer is yes. So the continuing education units can be made available for officers who are getting their college education at the University of Guam. But as I had mentioned in the open, the Post-Commission has paid for and received a training module called Police One. And so in this Police One program, law enforcement officers can avail of different trainings, and then these trainings constitute the continuing education credits, and these trainings are also made available at no cost to law enforcement officers. And this was really one of the things in the bill and in the public hearing. I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be an impediment for Guam Police Department officers to go out and, have to do their job as the premier law enforcement agency, and then also where they're going to go get a doctorate. It's not anything like that. Everybody who testified in support of the bill was of the thought that these Police One training modules are something, and in fact, they're already taking a lot of these courses. Not only is it relevant to the kind of knowledge and everything that law enforcement and police officers need, but it's also readily available through the Post-Commission, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, Vice Speaker?
Yes, thank you, sir. And like I said earlier, as I look at supporting the intent of this measure, one last question, Lou, is as we look at the retention and the initial years, right, after the 3 years of retention bonus, and I asked about the costs, the 2.5 million, would that come out from the department asking to come back to bring the resources for this program to stay intact?
Senator Barnett. Can you repeat that question one more time just to make it clear?
Once this program gets included, right, because the intent is great, who, after it says, if there's an estimate, if the entire force stays on today in the initial 3 years of this retention bonus program, the cost is $2.5 million, right? That's what was shared to us. So in this $2.5 million, to continue this program moving forward, will there be a need for the department to come back to this body to ask for more resources or not? Who's going to be paying for the program?
I'm going to assume that during the budget process, they'll be asking for that, part of their listing of things.
Yes, but I want to hear it from him.
Yes, Senator Barnett.
Thank you. You can hear it from me. It's my intention, actually, to try and fund this before the end of the term and give them the funding they need so they could pay it out. And then also, I mean, that's my intention. Yeah, I don't want to pass it just for the sake of passing it. I do want to put the funds toward it. Later, you know, we still have the rest of the term, and God willing, if reelected, it's something that, you know, I'll definitely pursue. So, yes, we'll do the funding.
All right. Senator, Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the reason why I asked that, because I truly believe that this will certainly be a regular occurring way to help retain our police officers without waiting for a pay study. I'm going to tell you, Mr. Chair, that we have over and over and over, like the chief of police said, we train them, we get them out on the force, and before you know it, they get grabbed by the military, by other security contracts out there, the federal government, and there's just so much. But we take the time to train them. We take the time to give them the benefits. And I want to make sure that if this is really to happen, because this is a great intent, I want to make sure that it's sustainable. And that's why I said, I literally hope that this is going to go through. And I ask my colleagues to help support the effort. And I really want to make this happen without having to go through a pay study over and over and over, and making sure that we provide the resources for this program. And again, how can we keep our officers who we train, or GPD trains, and the work that they do, how do they stay in without getting pulled to other places that makes more? And we keep trying, and this legislature has continued to answer to the calls for the need to keep our law enforcement here on our island, and that's what we need to do, and this is that commitment. And yes, I support the efforts of
Vice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice. You know, I made a commitment that at 5 we'll recess. It's a little bit
Mr. Chair,
after 5. Yes.
Would you like me to, if there's no one else who'd like to speak, I could just close on the amendment? And
No, he doesn't want to close yet. With that, we'll recess to tomorrow at 8:30.
That's that.
Thank you.